The Dragon Quest Remake project has been an effort that I've sought for years, as the only real modern platforms where most mainline entries are available is on mobile app stores. Last year's Dragon Quest III HD-2D remake was an ambitious start for that. While not ideal in my eyes, it stayed true to the original game's core and delivered an impressive facelift for the overall adventure. Still, I've remained far more curious about how the rest of the Erdrick Trilogy would fare, that being Dragon Quest I and II, and how they'll be handled. To be clear, I've always felt the older versions of Dragon Quest III aged well if you appreciate its minimalist storytelling and party creation. On the other hand, the first two games never clicked with me despite how conceptually strong they actually are. The first Dragon Quest felt a bit too old school, and gameplay-wise, Dragon Quest II is a little rough. So I was eager to see how a modern remake would treat both titles, especially knowing Dragon Quest III is a prequel within the Erdrick Trilogy. Now, after playing these remakes, I have fallen in love with the first two Dragon Quest games in a way that I never actually expected. These titles now stand strong with the gold standards of how remakes should be done, but let's unpack that in this full review. While Dragon Quest III is the quintessential classic RPG experience, the first two entries in the series don't follow the same structure most players expect. For starters, the original Dragon Quest is a solo adventure featuring one playable character for the entire game, while Dragon Quest II is much more narrative driven than was typical for its time with a predefined cast. In Dragon Quest I, you play as the descendant of the Dragon Quest III protagonist, that being the hero once granted the title of Erdrick. Set in the familiar land of Alfgard, the new hero sets out to save the realm after the Dragon Lord's corruption unleashes fiends across the world. But this journey is his alone. While others help from the sidelines, the adventure itself is a solitary one, which is a drastic difference not only from the rest of the mainline Dragon Quest games, but from JRPGs in general. The idea of being a lone hero in a JRPG, especially in a series built around party dynamics, is rather compelling. Even though the protagonist is silent, there are moments where his solitude is acknowledged by others, giving the story a quiet, emotional weight. Each victory feels hard-earned and meaningful, capturing that underdog thrill similar to early Ys games when Adolf fought alone. Further, the townsfolk's shock when you triumph makes each moment also memorable. At its heart, Dragon Quest I is a simple tale about proving oneself. The hero carries no proof of his lineage, and that lack of validation gives his quest more personal stakes. The game is relatively short, with an adventure that lasts around 20 hours, but the story connects neatly to Dragon Quest III, creating a satisfying cohesion. Princess Gwelan also receives far greater emphasis here, making her one of the standout characters of this particular remake. Dragon Quest II shifts things again by returning to a party-based format more in line with modern RPGs. Set about a century after Dragon Quest I, it serves as the trilogy's conclusion. You play as the Prince of Maidenhall, a descendant of the first game's hero, as he sets out to stop a dark force that has destroyed the kingdom of Moonbrook. Along the way, he's joined by his cousins from neighboring nations. The entry's predefined characters help it feel more emotionally grounded. Further, the familial bonds between the protagonists strengthen the story, and knowing the trilogy's history adds a little extra depth. It's also impressive how each entry in the Erdrick Trilogy takes a different storytelling approach despite their simplicity. I won't spoil the specifics, but Dragon Quest II benefits most from these remakes with enough new content to make it feel like a completely unique experience. It's easily one of my favorites of the trilogy now, which is something I never thought I imagined before. Gameplay in Dragon Quest I and II HD Remake remains rooted in the series' fundamentals: straightforward character growth, linear progression, and accessible turn-based battles. But several smart adjustments help both games feel modern without losing their old-school charm. Dragon Quest I now features multiple enemies per encounter, giving combat more variety. Further, Dragon Quest II introduces a newly playable character named the Princess of Canuck, who fits naturally into both the narrative and combat. Both games also feature new scenes, expanded storylines, and the inclusion of mini-medals, which are collectibles from later entries that reward you for exploring thoroughly. Quality of life updates make these versions especially enjoyable. Objective markers, battle speed options, auto-saving, and indicators for treasures or hidden spots on the map are incredibly useful for completionists. These additions can all be toggled on and off as well in the options menu, preserving flexibility. I should also mention that the markers themselves aren't overly revealing. Secret locations remain vague, and mimics or breakable items aren't highlighted, keeping exploration pretty satisfying. The Holy Protection spell, which reduces random encounters, also seems to work better than it did in Dragon Quest III HD-2D. Altogether, the balance between convenience and challenge feels carefully tuned. Still, one design choice that didn't sit with me well is the near total removal of backtracking. You can now use the Chimera Wings or the Zoom spell to fast travel between anywhere, including from interiors. While convenient, it removes tension and makes the evac spell used to escape dungeons mostly irrelevant. It's not optional either, which makes it feel like a small step too far in modernization. Dungeon designs also remain fairly simple, especially in the first game. Dragon Quest II fares better with more distinct layouts, though they still don't reach the complexities seen in later entries. That said, the challenge and grind loop remain rewarding. I played on the default difficulty, but experimented with the available modes, those being Dracu Quest, which is an invincibility mode, and Draconian Quest, which is the hard mode. You can freely switch between them at any time, which is an excellent option for accessibility. During my playthrough, I grinded on standard difficulty, then swapped to Draconian for boss fights. I should mention that the hardest mode lowers experience gains, but you can work around that easily. These settings perfectly capture what Dragon Quest has always done well, which is welcoming both newcomers and veterans to the JRPG genre. Even on normal difficulty, you'll still need to strategize, upgrade gear, and prepare for status effects. Equipment descriptions often hide useful bonuses, so reading them carefully pays off. Additionally, predefined parties also allow more deliberate encounter designs. Battles feel tailored to your available tools rather than generalized for a customizable setup like in Dragon Quest III. Without a heavy post-game grind, the experience feels far more tighter and more satisfying here. Battles offer both manual control and optional AI behavior for party members. I prefer handling actions myself, but the AI works fine for routine grinding. Beyond leveling and collecting gold, the remake expands on the sigil system introduced in Dragon Quest II. These key items now appear in both games, offering powerful buffs or ability enhancements. Their integration feels natural, adding tactical depth without overcomplicating things. Grinding also still exists, but it feels purposeful. The flow of progression matches the later Dragon Quest titles more than the NES originals. It's engaging rather than exhausting, and I never felt discouraged to keep going. Like Dragon Quest III HD-2D, the presentation here is stunning. I felt that the HD-2D engine shined brightest in the resolution priority mode, which boasts detail without sacrificing performance. The explorable environments are vibrant, from the colorful towns to the shadowy dungeons, and the lighting work gives these classic settings new life. I usually prefer performance mode for smoother gameplay, but the difference is negligible here. The frame rate holds up well, and the focus on atmosphere justifies prioritizing visuals. Voice acting is another major improvement, particularly in Dragon Quest I, which gains a surprising amount of emotional resonance from its new performances. The music, sound design, and reworked dialogue all help these worlds feel alive without losing the series' charm. Dragon Quest I and II HD Remake achieves what I once thought impossible, making me care deeply about two games that I had previously written off. The remakes enrich their stories with new scenes, voice acting, and interconnected world building that strengthen their place in this trilogy. Throw in some modern quality of life updates and beautiful visuals, and these stand as the definitive versions of both classics. Dragon Quest II especially stands out as a full transformation, expanding its scope and emotional weight to rival later entries. While a few modernization choices like fast travel go a bit too far, the overall design respects the original spirit. Grinding, exploration, and progression still feel meaningful, and the addition of flexible difficulty options make them accessible to every kind of RPG fan. Together, these remakes highlight how Dragon Quest's timeline structure can thrive when handled with respect and care. In my eyes, Dragon Quest I and II HD-2D Remake are near-perfect reimaginings that set a new bar for how to revisit cornerstones of this genre. After this, I'm more than eager to see where Square Enix takes the remake projects next. Noisy Pixel is giving Dragon Quest I and II HD-2D Remake a 9.5 out of 10. Thanks for watching. This video is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers providing independent gaming coverage through news, reviews, previews, and more. Check out our Patreon to help support our continued growth, and subscribe to keep up with all our future content.
Noisy Pixel.